Hi everyone, and welcome to another Ascension update with me, Shruti. You're watching Living Our Ascension. So I'm back with an Ascension update after quite a while actually. and this one is going to be about divine love and how the twin flame essence is blossoming on the planet. And of course, with our ascension, with each year and each month and basically each cycle, we keep on expanding, and something that is higher and that is integrated at the higher level within us then starts to become physical. But if you follow my videos, then you might know that I like to speak about on a very grounded level. So I like to speak about what's happening at a grounded level, because I really feel that when there's awareness brought into this, and we really integrate some of those patterns, and we are able to see what's going on, the core of what's going on, then that's when the real work happens, and that's when self-mastery becomes physical. So it's really important to because we are in a physical human body. So if we ignore the physical aspect, then I don't feel that it gets us anywhere. So anyway, I'm going to be speaking about I guess 3 main points about what's happening now. And I'm going to be calling this video probably the masculine meets the feminine, because and I'll, as I get into the video later, I'll speak about how. But I want to start with something something that we are kind of more on a healing level that we are doing right now, and which has to do with energy vampires. And I don't usually like this term, I've never used it before, these terms energy vampires and empath and victim, but they are so common in the spiritual community, and somehow it kept coming up for me. Spirit kept bringing this lately, this week for me, and there was a pattern within myself also that I needed to see, and I feel that this is what's happening right now. So I do want to speak about it from that perspective. So we're going to be using some terms just to identify certain energies, but that doesn't mean that we start labeling people. And the first thing before we even get into this is to understand that that we all have these tendencies. It just depends on to what degree we choose to create it in our lives. But we all can feed off of energy of other people, and it's just about identifying those patterns when we are doing it. So so basically, if you haven't heard this term before, then energy vampires just means when a person has the tendency to when they feel hollow from within, which all humans at some level we do. That feeling keeps coming up. It has to do with original cause, but it comes up for all of us, but what we do with it is different. So for a master, they would identify what's going on and perhaps put that energy towards something constructive, and call in their I am presence and work from their I am presence. But in the case of an energy vampire, a person is called so when what they do instead is they latch onto the energy of other people, or they try and trigger other people to get some kind of a reaction from them, or they try and control other people, and this is how they get energy just for a while, just to feel alive, because they feel so numb inside, but they don't know what to do with it. So this is how they've fallen into this pattern of doing this. Now, often also what goes on in the New Age community are these terms of the victim and the oppressor, or I don't really exactly know what terms are used, but basically one person who's the oppressor and the other person who's being oppressed, so the victim. And often people who are going through these spiritual awakenings and are open to some degree can fall into the category of the victim sometimes, because again, another term I don't like to use that often is empath, that is very commonly used, because again people can really identify with this term, saying that I'm an empath, which means that somebody who is really open to energy. So it's really good, when we are open to energy, it means that we have started feeling at a level that's higher than just the five physical senses. So you're opening up to those levels, and that's great. But after opening up, we start sensing energies. So it's not our job to absorb the energy that's around, that's in mass consciousness, that's around us, through other people, etc. And the core energy that we are fed, it comes from our I am presence, and the I am presence is our God self. We are connected to a higher self, and then beyond the higher self is the level of the I am presence, which is the God self, and this is our source for everything that we need in life. So this is a message that's really important, that Spirit wanted me to share with all of us, that remember, when you fall into these patterns of somebody, let's say, using you, or you feel drained by them, or you feel that you are in a pattern with someone, where they are just abusing you at some level, whether it's emotional, verbal, whatever it might be, or they have these guilt techniques that they use with you, they make you feel guilty about something, and because of that you keep coming back and you keep trying to rectify it and being good to them. And all of this has to do with the pattern of energy feeding, and we have to be honest with ourselves and recognize that if we are taking part in it, if we are allowing other people to do this, then somehow we are also feeding off of this energy, this codependent energy, and we are not attuned to the I am presence when it comes to this pattern, when it comes to this particular area of our life. So that message is really important for now, because we are basically stepping into a new level of divine love. Like always, it keeps expanding, and therefore it's time for us to be completely independent now and be all right with being that independent. Because when we come into our I am presence, often what happens is that if we are in these patterns of being the oppressor, or the one who's the victim, it's because we don't feel safe. We haven't established proper boundaries, and the reason for that is because there's some fear. So like you don't know how to say no to the other person, because you fear that the moment that you say no, your relationship might change, and the needs that are provided by them for you, you don't know what will happen to that, and you are scared of that. But again, I say that the I am presence is what creates everything in your life, including the people that are around you as well, is a reflection of what's going on within. So when you attune to the highest, then what's created in the external will also change. It might be the same people who are around you, because often these are family members, they're your children, your spouse, your co-workers, your boss, people that you can't that you are sort of with, you see every day or something. But these people might not change, but the interaction with them will change somehow, even if it's just one-sided, and you are the one who has decided from your end that no more of this. And your behavior, the choice that you make, your energy will put it out there that this has shifted within you, and you are not accepting this any longer. So it doesn't even need to be an outright confrontation with the other person. It really depends on what's needed. So remember to choose the I am presence. It's especially powerful when you are in the middle of that trigger, when that trigger and that exchange is happening, that is of a lower vibration. And within that, you remember that no, this is not truth, this is an illusion, and what's really real is my I am presence. That's the only thing that's real. And you remember your presence, and you choose what is right, and you know that you are safe within it, because as long as you walk the path that is right, you will always be provided for. And you might not see immediately how, but don't be scared of the consequences, and especially it's important right now for all divine lovers. Okay, so then the next important thing that Spirit wanted me to share is engage with people to the level that their actions show you that they are ready. So for example, we will meet with a lot of people in our lives, and they will be choosing whatever they choose. But when it comes to self mastery, if you are a master in the becoming, how this mastery really kicks in, it's really by making the right choices. And it can be quite an isolating experience at first, So this is why more people don't choose it because it can be quite challenging, and you have to make the difficult choices, the difficult choices per se. And but they are the right choices, and they are leading to something more expansive. So it's not just about, love doesn't mean that we just allow everybody into us, because love comes from a place of self-fulfillment first. You become that vessel that overflows with love only when you are filled in first. If you don't know how to fill yourself in with love, then you are just then that is it's just not love. It's not love yet. And we can't really be of use to anybody else either until we are not showing up for ourselves. So so what I wanted to say regarding this is that if somebody has shown you in your life that they can't show up for something again and again, their actions, maybe verbally they are committing to something, they are saying something, but their actions don't show it. So for example, I come across a lot of people, they'll say that, yeah, let's talk, let's Skype. Or another person, for example, was very interested in my work, and they said that I'll come and visit you. And, they said this twice. But then after that, they don't show up. The next time that they speak to you or they send a message, it's all very grand and, oh my God, I missed you, and let's speak and stuff. But in their actions, they're not following through with what they're saying. Then it's time for us to stop being, the good person, the quote unquote good person. And it doesn't mean that you're judging the other person. There's a big difference between judgment and discernment. And discernment means that we know what is right for us. We know our inner worth, our value. And when something from the external comes and it doesn't align with that value, we still see the other person or thing as we see it in their highest potential. It's not like you've labeled them that this is how you are and you have like a mean name for them. But you see how they are in the now, what they are choosing in the now. And if it's not something that aligns, then we have to be able to say no. And what's also really important now is the softness of the feminine. So over the past few years, we've really been and this is actually the next point, but I guess they blend into each other. The feminine within us, whether you are male or female, has been getting really empowered. And the feminine also has 3 different aspects. When it's the maiden aspect, which is that childlike wonder, magical aspect. Then there's the more nurturing side, the motherly side, which is the more feminine aspect. Then there's the more masculine aspect of the feminine, which is about empowerment, and having firm boundaries as well. This is the more masculine, discerning side of the feminine. So we have, many of us who are kind of leading the way into ascension, who are at the forefront, going through these initiations first. We, over the past few years, really empowered that feminine. But when we are going through a certain shift, a certain initiation, then we can be really all about that in that moment. So these women who and I'm speaking about myself as well, going through all of these initiations, you perhaps felt the need to be very more masculine in your energy, because you had to hold that potential that others haven't yet chosen, haven't yet integrated in their body. But now, as things get more balanced out and others also come into their power, especially the men as well, then we can relax into our feminine. And it's not really so much that it's because of other people, but the collective is changing as a whole. The potential keeps increasing. So if you are really doing your self-mastery, grounded self-mastery in your body, then you will be feeling this shift. How there's not a need for us to be so perhaps if you were very blunt in your face, or just claiming what your boundaries are. There's not a need always to be like that. Things can be done in a more subtle and soft way as well, but that firmness needs to be within. So within yourself, you need to be very firm. You need to know what that boundary is, and you hold that space of love for the other person. You hold their higher potential because if they're choosing something that is less than love, you hold that potential for them to choose love, but you also accept what they are choosing now. However, you are responsible for yourself, so you know what choice you need to make, and therefore we need to be able to say no. Or for example, before I felt that I had to answer every message that I got on Facebook. And when you share work, when you make videos or posts or whatever, even though I don't even have that many followers yet, but you can get a lot of feedback, or you can get a lot of people who message you, and sometimes they just they're not really looking for anything concrete. They just want to chat, or whatever it might be. And I felt the need to always reply, but recently, and then it would get into situations where people would press your buttons, or they would push their boundaries and then you had to firmly say that no, this is my boundary. But recently I've been choosing sometimes to not even answer those messages, that I don't have to, this is not something that I need to take on. And often this can come from this guilt that we feel about not doing enough for the planet and things like that. So it's time to really let go of these old frequencies and choose what is right for you in the now. So the feminine, especially if we are female, we really need to be able to feel that feminine, to be able to relax, and that sensuality that the feminine is, of just being present with life and being sensual with life, to not always need to feel that like we need to protect ourselves. So allowing that soft femininity is really important, because this is what's really leading to balance, not only for yourself but for in your relationships as well, and for the men out there as well as the women as well. So what else was I saying? There's just so much that if people are showing you that they are not that they can't show up for what they have said, then we need to be able to then be discerning within ourselves, but communicate to them, but in a softer way. Or perhaps even if we have to ignore, if that is the guidance we get, then this is also an option, but not in a way where you are running away from the situation. Rather, it has to do with what is right within love. So the change that I'm seeing now in our ascension is that when I meet men especially, I've really been noticing this in the past few months especially, and more so in the past few weeks, is that how, because when you empower yourself as a woman, often you can really trigger men when you have interactions with them in small and big ways, because a lot of women are going through this transformation process more strongly than men are. And this is generally true. It doesn't mean that if you're a man who is consciously going through this process that you are behind in some way. That's not true. But overall, because the feminine energy opens up first within us, that's the gateway to the masculine realms. And so a lot of women are embracing this first. And when we because we haven't ever seen the empowered feminine, the feminine has been suppressed for so long, for basically the whole of this planet, the history of this planet, except maybe in the golden ages, like way back then at the time of Lemuria and Atlantis. But the feminine has really been suppressed, and we really don't know what it looks like as women within ourselves, and as men as well, when they witness it in others. And I remember that whenever I used to interact with men, a lot of these interactions would lead to they would be more about this healing, this triggering that went on, this, even if there was love being exchanged, but there was still this mirroring that was happening regarding what needs to be healed within us. you know, and becoming comfortable, for example, for the woman, becoming comfortable in her femininity, in her empowered feminine, and for the man also to be, you know, comfortable with this. But now I'm really seeing a change, and that also has to do with the, you know, shifts that we are making within us, you know, because we made them within, and we became more comfortable over time. Because, you know, one thing is when we integrate light at a certain level, and then the next stage is you go out into the world and you experience it, you have interactions with people, so it becomes something experiential, you know. It's like learning how to play football, you know, the theory, versus going out and actually playing it. So when we move out into the world and we have different kinds of relationships, then we integrate what we already know at a higher level, you see. So we become more comfortable with it. So women are becoming more comfortable with their empowered feminine, and men are also catching up as well. And I'm really seeing how this is you know, it's becoming more equal, that we can, when we meet each other, for example, now it's more about the reflection of divinity rather than the reflection of what needs to be healed. So when we reach that stage, it's a really beautiful place. And I'm not saying we are all the way there yet, but you know, that we are beginning to see really strong glimpses of this. And this energy can be held more longer than it was before in the physical, and in your interactions as well. And if you are a woman who has really gone through her ascension process and is really empowered within herself, you know, through the ascension process, then you might not, you know, because there aren't so many people, just in general, men or women, who have attained this level in their ascension yet. In the world. But whenever you do meet whoever you meet, you know, that interaction, that particular interaction, that flow will be experienced according to your vibration. So if you know, if you are really comfortable being what you are, and also in the softness of your feminine, then you really allow others also to step forward and express who they are without being intimidated as well. You know, it's this allowance that's also really needed. And we need to step away from this warrior sort of a woman only, you know. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but when you only identify with one or two, then, you know, the balance can't happen. And so then what you attract through others will also not be that balance that we always desire. So this soft feminine is really needed right now, you know, holding space for others, even when you know, let's say, that the other person in front of you is not choosing the same level as you yet, but you know, but they are partaking, they're embracing the now, and they're really stepping into it. Then we need to be patient and hold space for that as well. And it's not always about just getting what we want, because we have become that powerful and we know how to manifest. And you know, when we are on our own, for example, we can create magic, we can create whatever we want. But when it comes to meeting with other people and co-creating something with them, you know, it can be a bit slower if the other person is not functioning at the same level. But it's not about competition, and it's not about getting ahead, you know. It's about, we're creating a community of divine love, you know. That's what this world is becoming. And so remember that is the most important thing. It's not a race. And you know, we can really benefit from this aspect of the soft feminine. That's really important right now. So yeah, basically that's all that I have. Let me see if there's anything else. And when I stopped taking part in these games of energy feeding, when, you know, because it's not like I was you know, so invested in it, but we can sometimes go back to these patterns, you know, when we are triggered and things are happening with us, you know, in our life, and we get triggered, then we can fall back into that pattern once in a while. But once you catch yourself, because that's what's happening now, then, and you make those firm boundaries to honor yourself in relationships and just relax in your femininity and in your masculinity as well, then there's no need to defend yourself. So we don't have that defensive thing when we go out, you know. Just because we're now sensitive and we can feel all kinds of energy, it doesn't mean that now you need to have this armor and protect yourself everywhere. it's about allowing others in, but it's allowing others in, allowing that in which is ready to be present with you, to co-create within love. And the rest of it we just hold space for. We don't have to say yes to it, and it'll be around us. Others also have the option to choose, so remember that they're not helpless. They also have the option to choose. So allow them that empowerment that you also have been through. And when we don't have this need to defend ourselves and we just relax in our own nature, then this is when the new frequency of the masculine meeting the feminine in a relaxed way can happen. So when we come together, the masculine and the feminine within us as the polarities within each person, as well as in the external, through the meeting of the masculine and feminine, then we can co-create something that is more peaceful, that is relaxed than it has been. It's not so full of triggers, and is not only representing what needs to be healed, which is also something sacred, but it can move to the next level, which is reflecting divinity. So for example, for the first time, when you see how a man holds space for you in a way that you haven't seen before, you haven't witnessed before in this life, that's because the masculine also is rising. Men are also embracing that, and that shows you a new aspect of yourself that you didn't or weren't able to see just within the empowerment that you have. So there's this divine mirroring that happens, and that's why we need to allow space to others too. Anyway, I'll just keep speaking, so now I'll just stop. And I did want to say as well that there were some services on my website, on my blog, which weren't available for a few months, and now I brought them back. And especially there's a huge sale, 50%, that's going on for my inner child healing sessions. And please check that out, because I think that's a great opportunity, and it's very applicable now with all of the things that we've been going through in these months. So it can really accelerate our ascension. This is why I was guided to offer a discount on this particular one at this time. And my Etsy shop is also back.